Well, joining me now is Scott Reid, CTV News political commentator. Morning, Scott.
Good morning.
So we get the Prime Minister, too, making a bunch of news and seemed to be a little bit feisty at points with some media members after APEC today, in particular apologizing to Donald Trump for the ad that ran, that we just heard from Judy, too, featuring Ronald Reagan's voice. What do we make of that apology and that admission from the Prime Minister today?
Well, a very fascinating exchange because, as you say, there's a bunch of news in there. We find out that he did apologize to Donald Trump for the ad, saying that it offended him and he felt obligated, therefore, to apologize, saying that he had asked Premier Ford to not run the ad, although Ford went ahead. And I think in some respects, perhaps the most important piece of news in all of that is the Prime Minister's insistence and the Prime Minister's clear message of remembrance to other premiers and political leaders that it is the federal government that bears responsibility for managing this relationship. And so when a premier takes that relationship off course, it falls to the Prime Minister to answer for it, to be accountable to it, to try to manage it, and in a situation like this, to try to fix it. And it's a very difficult spot for Carney. I'll just add this, because politically, Canadians want two things that appear to be in contradiction. They want their political leaders to stand up to Trump and to tell him to go fly a kite. But at the same time, they want access to the U.S. market. They want security for jobs and for industry. And it appears to be very difficult to have both of those things at the same time. That is the political and negotiating box that Mr. Carney finds himself in.
Right, and interesting, too, is BC gets set to launch its own set of ads, too, on the lumber industry is right. The other part of this, too, let me touch on China before we get to the budget, too, you know, and Xi Jinping, maybe the possible mending of that relationship, maybe?
Well, certainly some turning point as the Prime Minister termed it, because it wasn't just words, it wasn't just rhetoric. There was a state visit invitation from President Xi. So that means that there is going to be a set of diplomatic re-engagements between Canada and China. And look, again, you know, we turn back to what we were talking about a moment ago. The reason for this can be summed up in two words: Donald Trump. It is because of Trump that Canada must turn to China and say, well, if we face a threat of denied access to the U.S. market, we must look to other large markets, and China is the largest of those. So it is a perverse consequence of Trump's bullying of his closest ally that it drives us into the orbit of Trump's largest, arguably largest enemy.
Right. I want to ask you about the budget, too. It's coming in. We're finally going to find out the details on Tuesday. It is going to be here. And again, you know, earlier this week we were talking about it's not even finalized yet. At least those were some of the reports to this point. Do you believe Mark Carney and his government are in trouble with not passing it because he wouldn't answer that question directly from the media today?
Yeah, he didn't want to answer that because he doesn't mind politically the tension. The more tension there is, the more likely it is to place pressure on various members of the opposition to go fishing on budget day, miss the vote, to vote with the government, whatever it takes. And two things are true, which is unfortunate because they're not in harmony. One is that nobody really wants an election, except perhaps the Liberals secretly. I think they would have the whip hand if an election were forced by the defeat of the budget. But weird things happen. So you look at this situation, you say, there's no way the government is going to fall. There's no way that the budget will fail to pass because the NDP can't afford it. The Bloc can't afford it. Even the Conservatives wouldn't want this and shouldn't want this at this time politically. But strange things happen. We all think about 1979 and the collapse of Joe Clark's government, which he apparently didn't see coming until the very last hours. So, you know, stay tuned, buckle up. Weird things can happen in Parliament. But if I was going to bet 100 of my dollars, 99 of them would be that some way, hook or by crook, the budget will pass.
Yeah, so again, lots of drama, lots of storylines, too, today. Scott Reid, CTV News political commentator. Thanks for this, Scott.
Thanks a lot.